Good evening, everyone. This is Samuel Lombardo, the CEO and Executive Director of SL Models and Talent Agency LLC, as well as the Executive Director and CEO of V Smart Vocational School of Models, Artists, and Radiant Talent. Yes, indeed, radiant talent. So unleash the artist within and let your light shine. Today's video, I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. Instead of talking about the entertainment, well, actually it has to do with the entertainment industry, but I wanted to rant a little bit on professionalism, what it is to be professional, even on a YouTube channel. When it comes to like how to speak, what to speak about, and just typically professionalism, even relating to business on business, because I've noticed that there's a lot of that was going on as well, particularly with some companies that I have been a member of, and it's not a good thing. So anyway, excuse me a moment. I really would like to try to speak a little bit about that. So as most of us on YouTube already know, there are restrictions. Like, if you, from what I understand, according to me setting up SL Models and Talent Agency LLC, speaking about certain things within the community and marking no, that children are allowed to allow comment is extremely bad, already realizing if there is going to be specific language that would be used that otherwise kids would not hear. So one of the things that I normally do with SL Models and Talent Agency LLC is, if I'm talking about something like idle loan, for example, or something to that sort, I will mark it saying that it's not for kids. Not because I may be using foul language, profanity, or whatever in the video, but a kid really doesn't care less about whether or not an idle loan is happening or not. It's the small businesses, so I'm targeting that particular hashtags and videos and things like that to those who are interested in knowing about small business lending operations and what is going on with that program in the here now. But then there's the other side of the coin. And I do follow a lot of YouTubers, and I want to be very straight and blunt here. Nobody really has any reason at all to backlash any other person. There needs to be a fairness, and I feel like there's an issue here with folks on YouTube that want to do certain things and bring a point up. And my major point today, really, in this video, and again, it's mainly just ranting, we don't need to be using YouTube to lash at others, whether there's a disbelief of some sort or whatever the case may be. If you're trying to put a petition out there, then put the petition out there in a way that everybody will see the petition and would be able to answer appropriately. But you don't know who knows who, or who cares more about what situation, and even if your petition falls along the lines appropriately with the guidelines of the community of YouTube. So again, backlashing someone and then asking, hey, let's do a petition it's also another way of actually really just being desperate. Now, I'm actually trying to explain this in a polite way, but that is desperateness when you will do one thing under one breath and another in the same breath, and it just doesn't make any sense to me. So I'm just basically saying that if you guys are for the same thing on the YouTube channel, whether it's idle stimulus, if it's knowing about scam artists, like what a lot of what I've been talking about relating to the entertainment industry, let's work together. Like, you don't know, and we're gonna expand on that topic real quick here. Why I even brought this up in my SL Models and Talent Agency LLC account for YouTube as a video. Now let's move forward. I've also gotten an email backlashing an individual who has worked very, very hard for the reports that she brings up every single day on stimulus. And I'm not going to say or name names and go down that route, but the idea is she held herself up professionally. It doesn't, now, I'm a curious person, so you know me, like someone writes an article and says we're investigating, we're doing this, we're doing that. So what do? I go in there and I'm actually looking at the links that they had provided to show how this girl is like this, or this, right? A lot of that stuff is of the past. I could give you some stuff that you probably would not like about me, but it doesn't define who I am today. I'm pretty sure there's still stories going on out there about me, and I don't really care. That's their dirt, which means that that's probably somebody that would know me would most likely end up doing that, because that's the last that they heard of me. They don't know what I'm doing today. Maybe they don't agree that people have room to grow, And so that email that I got from this professional company, backlashing someone who, in my opinion, and I'm only going by what I see on the actual YouTube channel, was bringing up so much information that was helpful to those that needed to know the information about stimulus, especially pertaining to gig workers and nonprofits and small businesses and their lending programs and what has actually happened. And I do want to throw a little rant in there as well, because Jason actually brings up a big point. There's also been another point brought up, but basically two people agree about the IDLE program that is literally, it's a strange thing, but could only explain the madness, and you just got to stay tuned to the next video to hear what I have to say about the IDLE program. So, anyway, going back to this company that's backlashing this wonderful woman who I see, on the basis of growth anyway, is a total different person from these links that you see. I could not say for sure if the same person in that one that was a few years back is the same person that it is today, that she would be the same person today. I don't judge anyone in that way. And again, here's what I want to bring up about SL Models and Talent Agency LLC. We are so culturalized. I love it. Renee Lacey and I, we have been speaking on terms for a while on a professional level, trying to find the reality of collaborating, partnering, like doing the things that were necessary that would inspire growth within both companies. And, you know, I now have met up with Chinese. I know this is going to sound bad for some folks, but I have met up with some Chinese painters who does wonderful art and literally are professional. Yes, they are here in the United States, so it's a legal thing. One's in Florida, another's in New York, and I have another person who is actually in California. And we're all collaborating to do an actual auction house that would have like some really good quality artwork, antiques, etc., available to auction off on a quarterly basis. But we also have memberships and all that, and I'll explain that more in another video. But SL Models and Talent Agency LLC and Cameo Models International, we love culture. We love community. We love to provide the opportunity. This whole thing about the judgment and trying to put labels on people are getting further than ridiculous. That's an understatement and putting it lightly. There are some nights that I struggle sleeping to have to hear what I hear in some of those big cities, as well as, even the small cities. But like pertaining to Portland, first of all, there's opportunity for the ones that are creating the action that is being recorded on the news, and there are options for those who have gotten hurt. The problem is, who is actually going to step up and actually kill this off with love rather than actually continue to barge in the judgment, labeling and all of that. Yeah, okay, so they're looting and they're rioting. Okay, that I get that. Some folks have an aggressive way of letting out what their emotions are, especially in a big way where people are not listening. And when I say people, I'm really generalizing that. But I'm talking about the people that should be listening to fix the problems, whatever the problems is that they see. Or if there's a blindness, then at least give them something, a mirror of reflection or a mirror of perception or something that says that I don't even believe that it should even be that it shouldn't go on any longer, as much as it should be more focused on showing them the love. Because you know why? I was brought up that love kills. So if you think looting and rioting is bad, can you imagine if somebody were to go in the middle of Portland, and of course I'm going to try to say this without crying, that's why I'm giggling a little bit, because I'm trying to shine light to this. But can you imagine if someone can go there and just be like, I hear your story. It's loud. It is clear. We love you, but we want to give you some other opportunities. Let's stop this. Because nevertheless, I mean, you may look at it, and again, I I I hope this video actually gets some subscribers and really gets some people listening to that. It's because it saddens me that nobody understands this concept. But I'm actually pleading to the House, to the Senate, and to the President and his cabinet that it's one thing to call them something as strong as Antarctics, but in the reality is we are all Americans. And you're saying that. You're saying in one breath that we're all Americans, and but in the same breath, you're dividing what they are doing. Do I agree about what they are doing? No, I don't agree with it. And as a matter of fact, if you really look at the bothersome scenario, is it possible that down deep, if you really listen to some of their stories, would you agree that perhaps they don't want to do it either, but it's the only way that they can get their voice heard? It's like the last resort to them. Now, do I agree on a professional level? Do I actually agree that there should be groups out there that are actually preaching, go ahead and do this? That's a different thing. Because anybody is just trying to make money somewhere. So they're going to try to say, yeah, we're in support for this group or that group, or for the culture, or like, Black Lives Matter, or whatever the case may be. But the reality is the group actually doing what it should be doing for the people that it serves, or is it just another group trying to find a dollar from the same individual? So now it's just getting to the point where these individuals have no voice and they want to bring their voice out. See, I believe it's the second door. I feel that it's a little bit more. I don't really consider the idea of anarchists. I don't really. I'm trying to not be emotional. That's why I'm slowing down like that. I don't really consider it being an Antarctic situation. Is there some issues with narcissism? Perhaps, but I would probably say it's more egoic than it is, and fear that is creating a lot of these problems today. And, love is poison to fear. And what do I mean by that? Love being poison to fear. Well, fear is anything that would be the opposite of what love is, which would include hate. So there is fairness on both levels. I see it all the time. There are those who would instigate issues to bring an issue up, and then and then there are issues. There are people that strictly just do not understand what is going on, and I kind of fall in that category myself. But there's enough out there for me to listen to that I can at least come up with the statements that I'm coming up with, because I feel bad for both sides. I'm a firm believer of God winking at ignorance. And what does that mean? And it's scripturally proven too. It's in Proverbs where it's explained. Where God does wink at ignorance. That doesn't mean that I'm trying to call anybody a particular name or label anybody anything. What it basically means is that when you're ignorant about what you were doing and it's not what you're supposed to be doing, in God's eyes, it is forgivable. But once you know about it, it is not ignorance any longer. Okay, it becomes then a choice, and it's up to you to decide what path you're going to choose. And I feel that America needs more focus on love, needs more focus on who God is. Religion, putting God out of things, period, has been, don't know any other way of saying it, but I'm going to say it the way that I see best. This has been really painful. It has, there's excuses every which way because there's this religion, that religion, so that we end up with having religious liberty. And I like that about America, that we have religious liberty. But then religious liberty seems to only focus on small amounts of people who have the worst problem about their fear of God, to the point that they would rather take God out of the picture. It's not good. And an example of that would actually be those who believe that there is no God. And that could be scary. So while I'm carefully speaking in the terms of culture and that SL Models and Talent Agency LLC accepts everyone, which we do, we all need to be fair about what we are doing, and not one particular group over another has the right to force their agenda. I've learned this through the years with a course called, it's a spiritual course, called SpiritualEgo. And there are times, even as I'm getting messages from God by the angels, or the angels channel through me to give me messages or whatever, the whole thing is, in a nutshell, is that heaven, I can gladly say, heaven knows that it cannot force its agenda on the people of earth. But it does not stop God from his rightful throne in what he is going to do. And he has specific angels that do specific tasks. So it would be the same scenario here with America. The president knows that there's religious liberty, there is safety, there's the amendments, the Constitution, etc. But if you're going to force your agenda, then what that's saying is technically, and then of course the president says, okay, yeah, sure, we'll sign off to that. Then in other words, what you're doing is you're trying to force your agenda. And where does that actually lead? So I believe that as a nation altogether, we're at a time where there are many people fighting this karmic battle of spiritual egos. I believe it's a big thing. It's a big 2020 factor. I honestly do believe that. Um, I'm even getting goosebumps up my back, believe it or not. And I'm a very true believer of God. Now some might believe something else or source or whatever the case is, but I'm an Adventist and I believe in God, but I also do believe in spiritual egos, the egotistical ways of living, and that you should show more love and etc. So at least if I have the basic knowledge and knowing that I can live in that way, I could be a happy person. I just wish that people would stop judging people just because they are a different race. Like they could be non-binary, they could be like they're just a different person from you altogether. Or it could be religious reasons. And I'm saying this in the ramifications of the world, because we have a lot going on that when we talk about force, there's a lot of force going on out there. You don't want it my way, it'd be my way or the highway type of ordeal, right? And then if it doesn't even show up in that way, and you're not able to withstand the pressure of this spiritual ego war, then you end up just leaving from it, pretending it never even happened. That's what I call the windows of perception, or the mirrors of perception. Why? Because the reality is in front of us. What is real is what's happening. But we always want to take something and try to make something of it, or we're trying to, and a lot of what we're opposing today, at least here in America, is we're opposing our mirrors to perception. We don't actually see what's really going on. And then we become so blind that we don't even realize the reality of expense and everything that is created from the problem that we see in front of us. Now, we have a reality in three ways. Why? Because I can see the reality of our elected officials, put it that way, seeing it one way and then putting even more labels out there. And then I see the reality with the people who are tired of being judged and putting those labels on them, and that the elected officials just pretend and try to act as if everything is okay with the bare minimum. But we've gotten to the point that you have already gotten a forced inoculation for this issue that goes on today. So unfortunately, it's not the people's fault. Everybody's going to blame somebody. It's not the people's fault. It is really about what we are legislating. It is what the elected officials feel they think is necessary to stop one problem, and they forget that it could cause another issue. So how do you solve a problem without adding another problem on top of it? We can use this scenario with Portland, Oregon as an example. And instead of you saying that they are an artist, you could go there and say, you know what? Even if I called you an artist, I still love you. And we want to try to figure out a solution to fix the problem. But you know, that's easier said than done. Because that's not the reality that the elected officials see. That's the reality that I see. Right now, it's just a mirror perception. It's just me looking through lenses with the hope that it could look like this. But right now, this is what is really going on. I had people in my past, probably still to this day, who see me in a different light than what others see me as. Some I totally scared away. And I know it because the grudges are still there. How can you live with grudges for 8 years, 10 years, 20 years? What is making you stop loving a person? I feel like what comes out of the mouth is just hot air, or what is being typed on paper are just words filling up a space. Yeah, I actually wrote a poem like this one time. It's called, no pun intended, but it is actually called Sun Out of Kilter. And it explains everything of the progressions of what had happened in my life during a particular time. And it was a very simple situation in my life. But I had gotten a lot of backlash about it because it was taken way out of proportion. Way more than anybody that I could ever think of. And believe me, I know dramatic individuals. I still do. But this tops that still. I have not yet seen anybody top this particular issue that I had. And quite frankly, as far as I can see it, it's an extreme embarrassment to the person. I mean, for me, I knew what I was talking about, and I knew exactly what it is that was happening at that moment in time. But you are talking about a moment in time where both of us, or anybody else that was involved in that scenario, have grown, or I would at least hope they have grown. But what keeps the grudge going there? There's only one thing. And thanks to some people that I've known moving to Chattanooga, Tennessee, I was able to figure out what the real problem was in a nutshell, and that was the spiritual ego. Despite the fact that I know God, that I'm an Adventist, and that, you know, I'm a firm believer in Jesus, the reality is that we all have this egoic issue. Now, how God would determine it, it would be like those who are coveting. It would be those who are making images above other people or not showing love for their neighbors or whatnot. That's what that would be. And I feel that as of this past year or two, at the very least, with everything that I have known, I can literally sit back and actually laugh at the issue that had happened. I can. The only thing that really would concern me today is why the person would still have a grudge, knowing, and I know this for a fact because I get spiritual connection that actually gears me towards the person, because there is a real big legacy between that person and I, but I'm not sure if that person even sees it. What I do know is that on a professional level, the grudge has to be lifted in order to work whatever problem out. This kind of just, the situation that I'm dealing with, that I'm speaking about right now particularly, there wasn't even any closure. Yeah, there was a statement that at some point we may make music together, but for now we'll keep our distances. Yeah, there was that part of it, but that wasn't really actually closure. That was a thought. Right now, the perception that I'm getting from that statement is that it's false. Why? Because I don't see where this person's claiming, because on a professional level I can still follow and see that the person wants to grow on a professional level with the music, but in the meantime, the opportunities are going out the window just a little bit, or to an extent, because I'm going to talk about this particular individual. This person not only is still working out his spiritual ego, but also has a fear. And the biggest fear right now is whether or not, if he could take it any further, that he would end up running into me. And why? Because there's still the grudge. So if the grudge could be lifted, the fear wouldn't have to be as strong, and therefore he could start loving the idea that there was this issue that happened, but that we finally could grow past it and love each other in the way that human mankind has for us to love each other. I always hear these statements, love, peace, and understanding, but I get confused with it with some individuals who say that but have a hard time actually doing it. And, you know, God winks at that, but at the same time, it's a definition called hypocrisy. Okay? Like, how could you say that you are going to do these things, and then there's a particular situation that you just cannot move on from, or that you have not let go totally? Now, letting go is not the same as moving on. A lot of people think that they actually mean the same thing, but they actually don't. Letting go means, and I'm going to put it in the perspective of a Christian, letting go is when you're actually asking, you're doing the forgiveness part, okay? Moving on is actually when you're dealing with repentance. What does that mean? Well, forgiveness, you don't have to be with the individual or whatever. I mean, you could forgive the individual and still never see them again. Repentance is what happens if you happen to see the person again. Because like Jesus says, even in his word, to Peter and Paul, like, you gotta forgive 70 times 7 times 7. In other words, it's gonna keep happening. But love is what will win all. That's basically what that's saying. Well, you know, me growing up, and some grow up faster than others. Like, I do believe, I figured this part out recently in the past couple of years. Whereas maybe this individual might find out at the age of 26 or 27. What I do know is that when you're dealing with spiritual ego issues, they are some of your hardest hits. A lot of times you have to take hard hits. You may lose a loved one. You may end up, these are the issues that revolve around karma. Like, for example, if you have an issue about love and that you're holding a grudge at the same time, and there's this issue turning what I call a karmic loop. A lot of times karmic loops are going to, I don't know, I call it like the stinger. There's a stinger, and what happens is something comes out of the loop that actually pulls you away. And I have noticed that twice, well, they both were really, at some point, I knew that they were going to go. But for me, my father and my mother had passed on, and there were a lot of things that they said before they passed on that gave me exactly what I needed to know today. And that was the truth. That was the truth of what it is that they wanted me to know. It didn't matter how much they just would fight with me periodically during the phases of my growing up. It was at that moment in time, and I've heard the truths that I needed to hear. The realities that were coming from their heart as they're laying there, and I can remember my father actually squeezing my hand as my friend Lynn was actually holding the other hand with my hand, praying. We knew what the next step was. So, for some, it may sting like a real bad sucker, and it could be, now you have lost your son before your son mourned over you. It could have been that way. I mean, it could have been, and it doesn't have to be loss of life. It could also be many other karmic loops, whether it's financial. It could also be that despite you going through the stinger of the loop, that you still don't get the picture, and then you end up with failed relationships. Or you may think that you're in a good one, then you get married and you find out that wasn't the marriage, or that wasn't who you are, or whatever the case may be. The point of me bringing any of this up is that karma works both in the good and the bad. And the harder you hold on to the bad side of things, the harder this spiritual ego test is going to get. At some point or another in a person's life, regardless of what you believe in or how you believe it, you will be tested on your spiritual ego. Now, what is spiritual ego? Above everything else that we're going through here, let's look at what ego and fear is to begin with. Fear is something that you're afraid of, right? The ego says that regardless, let's say I'm afraid of fire, right? My ego tells me that as long as I could walk across the fire, I'll be okay, right? So then I keep walking across the fire and nothing is happening. Well, spiritual ego says, well, I'm going to stick the fire on you. So now you have your fear of what could happen with the fire, But you also have your ego that says, well, I'm going to walk across it. It's never hurt me before. I'm going to do it now. And then you go and you cross the fire and you find out that you're burning up your leg. Now let's put this in a more stronger preview. Let's say that you have a grudge on a person. Your ego says, I will never be like that. I've never done this. I've never done that. And then your spiritual ego test would basically be, we're going to find someone who literally hurts you so bad to the point that you could prove that you love that person regardless. Ooh. That's interesting. It's interesting, but it is really hard. Believe me when I say this. Many people could tell me. I had a spiritual leader try to tell me these things. It's a real thing. And if you don't know it before now you better know it. Spiritual egos is probably the worst thing. It's the worst test in your life. Some of you get it sooner than others. And then, it just depends how fast you can do it. A lot of times if you're in a karmic loop, they are considered karmic relationships, meaning that you hadn't technically found your soulmate yet. And I'm not going to go into those details. That's a whole nother subject matter for another video. But your spiritual ego test is a separate scenario from you actually finding a soulmate. That's the whole point of me bringing it up. So if you are stuck in a spiritual ego test and you think that you have found the love of your life, then you're either settling for a very nice, beautiful karmic ride. Good luck. Sometimes it happens, other times it doesn't. If that was the case, I'd go with somebody that's Capricorn or Taurus. That's my opinion. Anyway, because the issue is that you need to know deep in you your challenges, the road that you want to take. It's one thing to sit there and brag, well, I came out of the closet, or I've done this and I've done, I've been, I am who I am and this is how I am and all that. That's all good and dandy. But the spiritual test is this. Let's just say that you're looking for one thing and another thing comes along. And you think that person's harassing you, stalking you, whatever the case may be. That's a simple spiritual ego issue. But let's take it in a more grand of things. Now, if you have to hold a grudge because somebody had a crush on you and it was just simply, I'm not interested, but thank you, I'm flattered. Something is wrong, because if you have to go through the bigger spiritual ego test, this is the one that you're going to have a real hard time with. If you thought that my issue was bad, then there are issues. I would let you buy a book that you could read. The Medium and the Inmate. That will tell you something about a real big spiritual ego issue. Why am I saying that? Because the ego wants what it wants. You want what you want. but the spirit knows what is best. And of course, that doesn't correlate with everybody so well, so they have to go through these karmic loops and, learn valuable lessons. But when you're dealing with a spiritual ego, what you're dealing with are two things. One is, do you think you have what it takes to be above God? And can you make your agenda work? Or is everything being done by force? Now, force goes in two ways. Like, I could say that I want to force a relationship with somebody. Excuse me one more time. I could say that I could force a relationship with somebody. But that's not going to be half as bad as saying, telling the world how much I love you and I want peace and understanding, and then boom, you try to get someone in trouble for harassing and stalking or whatever the case may be. Do you know what your spiritual ego test is here? Your spiritual ego test in this situation is to determine how far you actually are going to go before you crack open that box and realize all of the Pandora that's in it. In other words, what you fear is your own weaknesses, so you want to put yourself into a higher position by blaming the other person or the people, okay? But you're becoming like the pedestal of what really is actually going on. So what turns out is, and I'm going to use my example, I was speaking with friends and I basically had basically explained my situation, because my story is my story. It's my side of the story that has not been heard on the other side. Let's put it that way. Anybody that this other person's talking with or had been talking with or whatever's going on, they hadn't heard my side of the story. And my side of the story was simply this, and that's why I'm actually laughing about it today, is that this whole thing is over the fact, two things. One is that I did have some feelings for an individual. That was a real, actual feeling. It wasn't, okay, I was in the beginning phases of my spiritual ego test, because at that time I wasn't sure what this feeling was until I started understanding what like soulmate is, or what a friendship is, what the actual twin flame is, and all of this stuff, okay? But the reality was I basically had a crush on an individual. But the words that I was using were being twisted by another person. And even though that it might have been okay to speak to with the individual that I should have spoken to, meaning the person that it belonged to, I decided to, and the reason for that is because I had the fear of losing a very good person in my business who is a very highly professional individual, that where this legacy was starting. And I'm talking about 7 years ago that this happened. I can remember to this date exactly when we actually disappeared and this cut off all channels of communication. When I say cut off, I'm talking about to the point where there was a cease and desist. on, this is what I call stalking, this is what I call harassment. And I had to be very, very careful, even though that there were times where I had to open up, either I was hijacked with some of my accounts, and I had to open new accounts, or that I had to open new accounts because Facebook only allows you, well, at the time, they only allowed you to have 5,000 friends. So I'm just thinking to myself, well, this dude, he must be sitting there counting how many sites he blocked me from. And this is just starting to get very ridiculous. I laugh about it today, and the reason is because I really have no harm for this individual, and now I blatantly have moved away, so I'm not anywhere near a threat to this individual. I'm like 750 miles away from where this person is now. And my story would have just simply been this, if you really want to know the reality of it. I was mixed between actually knowing what love is, meaning that I was able to actually experience it. And when I say experience it, let me just be very clear about this. No, it's not a relationship, but the fact is that because that was when I was first able to channel into people. And I was able to be gifted for that. And what I have noticed is that this person had a very good urgency of spiritual love, tantra love, meaning a spiritual above God Almighty, etc. And what happened was, at the time, I was still learning my ego, which is what I wanted as a person. And even though that to me, and still to this day, I say that it was only a crutch, the other people had to, the other friends, if you will, had to expand the story such as so that it made me look like something that I wasn't. And this person could not even see the reality of it. He's stuck only in mirrors of perception. I'm just going to put it out there as that. He's only stuck in mirrors of perception, because half of this that was going around about me, I was able to just go to the county clerk's office to actually get the proofs, have it stamped, and say, well, no, I'm clean of this. This is never me. And this is the reality of it. You don't have to perceive it just because somebody's talking about it. Now that takes me to the next topic. Terminology and word usage. For example, and I'm going to just go right to this. I have told a specific person that I like people that are younger than me, and I also explained why. And that is so that they would have a life after me, and that they could still enjoy. But also that I see it as being a blessing to the family, whether who it may be with. And I allow God to open that door. Well, anyway, long story short, when I explain the ages, like I'm talking 24 to 30 or whatever the case is, the first thing that comes up is, ew, you're like a pedophile. And the first thing that I tell them is, well, let's use the words that you just used. You said it is like a pedophile. So what is a pedophile? A pedophile would be somebody that is doing dirty deeds, the individuals that are underage, right? There is physical contact with, it doesn't matter if it's a him or a her or whatever, is underage. So when you say it's like a pedophile, what you're trying to say is that you're already dictating that I want something in that way with someone that is underage. That's what you just said. Using that term. Now, I had some that would tell me, and I'm going to explain why I brought this particular issue up too, because I don't want you to be blinded by what I'm trying to get at here. I had others that said that, no, you are a pedophile. And I would be like, okay, show me where I'm a pedophile. I don't know, but if you have a crush on someone or whatever, and you're like 15 years older than the person, well, hold up, let's go back. Are you saying 30 and 15, or are you saying 25 and 40? What are we talking about here? In other words, there were very strong verbiage going on in the rumors that was about me during that time, that they could not even tell me the reality of what was going on. And like I said, I don't blame the person that had blocked me. The only thing that I blame that person for, in all honesty, is why I just cannot see through the reality of the situation, have some kind of mediation, and talk about what is really what, because there could be many things that could happen, and that would be so much better than you fearing that I'm going to be ruining your life over some issue that you were wrongfully accusing me for. Excuse me. Yes, folks, this video is a little bit more personal. Like I said, I'm ranting a little bit, but I'm also trying to share my stories with you. And why is that? Because even as your big boss is looking for your talent and everything, I have my stories too. We all go through situations in life. And what I'm saying is that regardless of the situation, you do not have to let that be the downfall. I'm still going to be Samuel Lombardo. I'm still going to open up the school, open up the conservatory, open up the model and talent agency. I'm still going to do what I need to do, despite what these people want to say about me without any reality to back it up. And that goes right with people that believe, and I'm going to stretch this out even more so, people that are believing these stories even about the president. Oh, that he called the veterans sucker for going to the Vietnam War or what have you, or they're losers or whatever. First of all, that's very strong language. I would be curious to find out who even thought of writing it. I'd be very curious. But apparently the president has passed his spiritual ego test. Why would I say that? Because it's not causing him to fear anything. He's still the president. He's still going to do what he's going to do. And nothing's going to stop him. So you can sit there and throw every hoax out there that you want to throw. But it's your ego that's going to get you to need to follow the demands of what God wants from you. So if you have fun throwing hoax and deliverables or mirrors of perception and they're not reality, forget it. You know, just keep doing it until you figure out your reality. That's why I give credit to this president, this particular president, because he, above any other president that I know of, has went through so much stuff at one time than any other president that I could even think of, and still trying to keep up with what he needs to do. And believe me, there's a lot of chargeback that was going on with him. That stories left and right. And this is the biggest one yet. Because now it's hitting home to people who actually lost arms or legs or whatnot and are actually believing a statement that is not even actually confirmed. Just that it happened to be there because sources say that it's there. But unless it's actually confirmed and there was an actual habilitation to what actually was going on, why are you reacting to something? Of course, then we have the other side that is using this as like a tactic, but would literally make him look like more than a fool. And I'm going to just say it point blank. It would really make him look like a fool when he finds out later that this was literally a hoax. That it was really a hoax. I don't know what he would have to say about that then. So the only thing that they could do is throw garbage at the other side, and the other side's looking at throwing garbage at the other side. The garbage needs to stop. And right now the focus is on what the American people need. We have an issue where there are judgments being called to people that rightfully are forcing their own agenda. This is a whole group of people that are going through a spiritual ego right now that are basically, this is their way of reacting. Is it right? I'm not saying that it's right, but what I'm saying is that you need a lesson on what spiritual ego is so you know how to handle a person that's going through it. Then you know how to handle a situation, but to call them an artist is not going to be the way to go. At the same time, I do not believe 1 minute that any president at all would be able to say something against the American people that fought for this country. I believe that they were taking what they wanted to hear to be able to twist it into a perception. And then whoever this group of collabs were decided this is the statement that was said. That's what I actually believe. Why do I say that? It's because it could actually happen. It happened to me on a much lower level. This is a bigger level. But still, nobody can actually prove that the president actually said those precise words. And you can always go right back to the videos to see if you ever heard them, or if you could even listen to anything that sounds close to it. So yeah, I'm giving you an hour of my time to actually share with you the spiritual ego, what it means, but to also share with you how to be professional. Some might judge me in saying that this wasn't professional for a modeling agency, but you know what? While you may be right, that's not the reality here. The reality is that I have a message to share with everyone about what it is that hurts people. Why SL Models and Talent Agency LLC is so community and cultural oriented. And why we actually love everyone as a family, regardless of how many people we end up booking or who our clients are. We keep everyone equal. And they are like a family. We are all like a family. And therefore, all this prejudgment or whatever that you're going to do about this video, understand that it doesn't stop me from where my big goal is. And that is to bring everybody together as a single family to do one simple, similar goal. And that is to collaborate, get out of the competition and to collaborate and be able to build up brands of people that I would then be ready to actually book and bring them to the clients, and we all would be working together on an equal basis. None of this, that this seems to be like I'm doing all the work, or that being that you're doing such one thing over the other, or whatever the case is. No, it is equal. It is an equal opportunity. That is what SL Models and Talent Agency is in its true, real way. We unleash the artist within and we let your light shine. We don't take your light away from shining and unleash our own thoughts on you. No, that's not the way that it goes. It's the other way around. Our slogan, our message, unleash the artist within and let your light shine. Until our next video, have a blessed day.